Hello and welcome back to Highway to Hoover, a production of SEC Extra over at d1baseball.com. I'm your host, Joe Healy, joined not only by my good friend and co-host, Mark Etheridge, but also by a special guest today. We have Lance Cormier on the show today. There's a lot of superlatives we could put by his name. You can call him, I guess the phrase they use is SEC legend. It's probably something that's going to make him blush when I say that. He was an 8-year big leaguer. Broadcaster with ESPN. You've certainly heard his work recently on college baseball, and something else we want to get into. He's now also an SEC baseball dad. So we'll talk a little bit about the dad role in SEC baseball before we get done here today. Lance, first off, we appreciate you taking a little time to join us and talk a little SEC baseball now that we're, as I look at my watch here, about 5 weeks away from opening day.
I appreciate you guys having it, and you're right, man. It is coming fast, and that's what we want, right? We live it, we want to get into it, and so can't wait for that first weekend, opening day, February, coming up.
Before we start to look ahead a little bit, I think the first thing, Mark and I were both, when we talked about what we wanted to talk to you about, this was one of the first things that came up, was how you reconcile and think about last season for the SEC when there was so much dominance during the regular season, you know, with the number of teams in the field, the number of top 8 seeds, the number of teams that hosted. But we saw a lot of those teams lose in home regionals. We saw some lose in home super regionals. So how do you think about what kind of season it was for SEC baseball last season when you consider the dominance of the regular season with, I think we can fairly say, a little bit of a disappointing postseason for the league?
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, I mean, you summed it up really nicely. But when you look back at everything that you can do, the regular season, it means so much, and like it's so hard. You know, you always hear these coaches talk about the 10-week gauntlet, and like it's like no other. And you know, when you talk about the amount of teams that made the postseason and in the super regionals, it truly is a super regional atmosphere every single weekend. You know, for the most part of those 10 weeks, and so no one really knows outside of the league what it's like being in the league unless you've done it before. And so when you get to postseason, it's like you're already tired, you're already beat down, you're already those things. Now, can't use that as an excuse because you see other teams do the same thing, but like you can see why that letdown happens because, I mean, they've had to be up every single weekend for 10 straight weekends to kind of put themselves in that position, you know, to make the postseason run. So you can see where the league can almost, you know, we see it in football too. The league eats itself up, I guess is what you would say is the teams are good. The talent is good. It's at the highest level you've ever seen it. I mean, we see guys go from, you know, SEC lineups and SEC mounds to the big leagues, you know, in the blink of an eye. So you know the talent's there. But postseason baseball is just different. You guys know, y'all been around it so long and study it. You know, 2 hot pitchers, you know, 3 hot guys in a lineup. And all of a sudden you look up and the team's making Omaha. That happens. And you come across, you know, different situations, weather. I mean, I did the Auburn Super Regional. Weather came into play. Okay. Auburn used that weather in a good way. They came back, but then all of a sudden you lose things. So, like, all those things happen, and, you know, that's what makes postseason baseball beautiful.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it, season's almost here. Are there certain things that you're most excited about, maybe within the league, whether it's, you know, new players changing venues, coaching changes, all these different things? I'll just let you take it wherever you want to go.
Yeah, you want to see, obviously, you know, really cool to see what Coach Vitello does in the big leagues, but also what, you know, Josh Nylander does. I mean, because everybody been saying he's the next coach. Well, he wasn't taking the next job. Well, now the job's in front of him. You know, what Mississippi State's going to look like. Does Texas A&M have that bounce back year? Because, I mean, that was a tough situation for Coach Early to be thrown into. So I think now, like, that's going to be a thing. And then, obviously, with the transfer portal, I mean, who even knows who's on what roster right now, right? Unless you're deep diving into it to see that what studs, you know, what guys, you know, rise up to the occasion and take the lead, and who are the next, you know, first-round guys that you're going to see coming out of the SEC.
If you, like all 3 of us, are still a little bit fuzzy on who's on what roster, you can head to d1baseball.com and read our fall reports. That'll help you get up to speed on that. We call that a tease in the business, Lance. So there you go. Well, you mentioned Mississippi State. That is probably the team I'm most fascinated to watch this season. It's basically 2 rosters combined into one. You have a lot of State's best players, a lot of Virginia's best players from last year. What was your reaction, Lance, with the hiring of Brian O'Connor to Mississippi State in the offseason?
Yeah, obviously I love it. I mean, when you come down to bringing in another high quality, top notch coach in the league, I mean, he's one of the best in the country. Obviously, having a national title at Virginia already, but then always in the postseason. Now, it's totally different. He had a comfort level at Virginia that he's not going to have at Mississippi State because now it's fresh. I mean, everybody knows it happens fast, right? Lamona's national title in 3-4 years, and you're out of there, right? So there's no comfort level in Starkville. And so, but now the riches, the resources, everything that he has, you're right, kind of pick and chose his players he wants from Virginia, compounded with an unbelievable portal and recruiting class that Mississippi State does. I don't feel like Mississippi State's going to be down long. I feel like that's a program that they're going to do what it takes to have themselves in that top, tier in the SEC, and not just the SEC, the country.
Yeah. In an earlier answer, you mentioned Tony going to the Giants. Certainly, as somebody who played college ball, you've been around the game a lot recently, but you've also, worn that MLB jersey. What's the difference in those jobs? Could you go into a little bit about, from a player's perspective, what you need from a college head coach versus a major league manager?
Okay, so I think it's kind of adjusted a little bit from when I was in college to the big leagues, right? Yeah. Coaches in college now, I believe, are more of the CEO type, where they're managing, because now you're managing NIL stuff, you're managing roster numbers, you're managing the people that you have, and that goes to the big leagues even more, because now you have the $30 million player to the league minimum player, right? And everybody in between. You're also bringing in different nationalities, because you might have Latin players and everything in between. And so now, you have to juggle rosters and be the ultimate player's coach. To me, the guys that have the most success are the guys that the players, each and every day, they get to the field and they want to play for that guy. And that you shouldn't have to say that. You're playing a game for a living, making a lot of money in the big leagues. You should be able to play the game no matter what, because that's what we love. But there's some things that, man, everybody needs motivation sometimes. And I think he's going to do great. I think it's a win-win for him in a situation. Think of when Coach Saban left LSU, right? Was at the top of the game in an unbelievable place that he could have stayed at forever. Well, wants to dip his toe into the highest level. And I think that's kind of where Tony V is. I mean, Tennessee is great. He just won a national title already. So now he's got the point where I've done that. What could it be like in the big leagues? Well, if it goes wrong in the big leagues, how many schools are going to sit there and go, I'll take it, right? They're going for him. So I think that's going to be a great thing. But I think he's at a point where obviously his players love playing for him. There's no doubt about that. You see just the emotion that they play with him. He's right in with the emotions. Now, I think sometimes you're going to have to control those emotions when it gets to the big leagues, because you're dealing with diva type players sometimes. And, hey, they're making a lot more money than you are in a sense. So that's where it comes. But as a person, man, he really, to me, fits that role on how he handles himself and how he deals with his players.
Obviously, one of the other teams that's been at the top of the league recently with Tennessee is LSU. They're coming off their second national title in 3 years. I just kind of wanted your reaction, Lance, to in a SEC and college baseball generally, where parity has never been greater, right? It's harder to win a national title than it's ever been. You look at however many 14 to 13 teams into the SEC, into regionals last year. The parity, it just is what it is. And yet, LSU's in the situation where there they are back on top again. 2 national titles in 3 years. Wouldn't be shocked if they had another one in 2026. What do you make of the Tigers being right back in borderline dynasty territory if they can add another national title here soon?
Well, it goes back to resources, right? It's a school that will do anything it can to win, especially on the baseball side of things. You have one of the best coaches in the country in Jay Johnson, who we just talked about players wanting to play for that guy. I mean, he's got to be one of the top guys that everybody wants to play for, just how he handles it. Now, they've also had some of the greatest players. I mean, we're talking when you can throw out Paul Skeens, sit back, cross your legs, your arms, and go, hey, get me to the 8th inning with no runs. So, so he's had some generational type players as well. But I mean, when you recruit at that level, when you can showcase what Alex Box Stadium is, what they get from Marucci, what all those types of things, and you go, man, as an 18-year-old kid or as a 22-year-old kid, like, yeah, sign me up, right? We all want to go do that, and we all want to go play for that guy in that situation. And again, though, that's where the whole, at least 5-10 of the teams in the league are at. They're all in the same spot. That it's just Jay Johnson has won that extra game, right? He's gotten to the point where they got on top 2 of the last 3 years, and so. I do think, again, they keep bringing in guys, and they're going to have more dudes this year that, again, you're going to see in the top rounds. But to me, when it comes down to the league, it's all about not losing that number 1 or number 2 arm and not losing that middle of the order hitter. When you look at teams at the end of the year, you're going to go, hey, what happened to them? They had higher expectations. Well, look at the injuries. Look at those one-run games on the road. Because sometimes when with an unbalanced schedule and you don't play the same teams, heck, you get the luck of a draw sometimes, and you got the teams where you're not going to Alex Box, they're coming to you. You don't have to play at the dude, they're coming to you. You get to go to schools that you don't want to you're not trying to badmouth schools, but some schools just don't have the atmospheres that the top tier do, and so. Hey, and then are you catching that team in a down year? So there's so many things come into play, but man, what LSU does year in and year out to be where they're at is something special.
I've got one for you that people ask me, and this time I'm gonna flip it around on you. As you travel around the SEC and you get to go to these different ballparks, are there some that really speak to you, either from aesthetically pleasing or atmospheres or just random? You just like it, right? Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I've technically never been to the box for an LSU game. I've been to the new box, summer ball type stuff. But when you talk about Duty Noble is obviously a Taj Mahal when it comes to aesthetics, right? Just look at it, the amount of people that it can put in there, their passion, right? Well, some of the games that I've done, they weren't as good. I want to see I did an Ole Miss Mississippi State game. I want to see that when they're both in the top 10. Like that could be, last year we did it. It was a doubleheader with rain, and so the crowd's kind of still a great atmosphere. But you're going, okay, this could be special. I remember when we went to the old dude, in '99, big Super Bulldog weekend, 15,000 people. Yeah. And you're like, this is crazy. Smokestacks in the outfield. So, to me, that's always been the top of the top for me to go there, because that was one of my first memories in school. But Arkansas, man, I've done regionals there. When they start calling the hogs and that big inning's coming, they got the beer hats on. It's as cool of an atmosphere as you're going to have. There's places that, to me, when you do the thing that we get to do in broadcasting, go to the places, you can start to see why that guy loves that school. This guy loves that school, and what those fans, when they truly dive in and they get a part of that atmosphere, you can see, it'd be awesome to be in the outfield and Ole Miss hits a home run, right? That's I remember one year we did a regional there, and it was, I think Ole Miss had just been crushing. And we did the open, and I was in the outfield and just trying to, feel what it felt like out there. But those are a couple, the Arkansas, the LSU's, Ole Miss. Never been a state shoot, did the super regional at A&M, and that's really cool. I couldn't imagine being on the mound and having ball 9 coming at you, right? That's when there's no way I'm throwing a strike. Somebody come and get me. I think that's for me one of the best parts of the league. Is that everywhere you go, you're going to get something different.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe that answer is part of the answer to my next question for you, which is, what do you think has been behind the SEC taking off the way it has and kind of leaving, again, I don't want to be disrespectful, there's other good leagues out there, but has left a lot of these other leagues in the dust. What kind of things do you think go into why that has been the case with the SEC elevating the way it has?
First, it's commitment, right? From the top down, you have your presidents, your athletic directors, that they're obviously committed to winning at that level, because you're putting, first you have the commitment, right? You make the decision, but what has to follow is you got to have the funds. And when you look at across the league, since Bama's was in 2016 was when they renovated. Still looks beautiful and everything, but now you're looking at, man, it's almost 10 years old, right? But in the last 10 years, how many stadiums have been renovated or brand new stadiums in the SEC? You could, we're almost at where it's 15, 14, 16, right? And so commitment there. And I remember when we were at A&M 2 years ago when they were playing Oregon, and my dad actually came on a trip, and he hung out with me, and Schloss is taking us around, and he's showing us, and like Blue Bell is already an amazing place. They have some amenities that everybody would dream of, and he's like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And my dad was like, holy cow, like they already have an unbelievable place, and they're going to spend that much more because that's what it takes, right? It's not keeping up with the Joneses, it's setting the pace. Because if you do something 2 or 3 years later, 5 other schools have done more, and so you have to keep that commitment. And that's what you see in the SEC. Coaches' salaries higher, right? So then assistant coaches' salaries are higher. They're paying, the portal players that everybody knows that's where they're going to make more money. So you're getting the better coaches. You're getting the better commitment from the athletic departments. You already have those established fan bases which want to see those winners. So I think it's just kind of the perfect storm that when you put all those together, that's why the SEC pulls away. Again, regular season, totally different. Postseason, again, national titles, they're pulling away. But overall success, where you think, all right, the SEC is going to put 6 teams in Omaha, it's still going to be a tough time to do that because there are some good conferences out there. But just when you talk about top to bottom, I don't think anybody can argue that the SEC is obviously leading.
Yeah. Well, in your role now, certainly with ESPN, you get great access. How has that changed how you view the sport, or has it?
Well, no, for sure it does, because you start to see the things that, man, what if we would have had this? What if we could have had these things? We talk about, hey, we didn't even barely have protein shakes, at school. You had to hope the football strength coach has left the building so you can sneak in and grab some stuff. Like that's where it was. Now, like nowadays, these kids they almost can have full-fledged meals in their clubhouses, and they're not going to their wellness centers because they're going to the field because they can make just as good of stuff there. And so like that's a step level. But then like talking about, one school we haven't mentioned yet was Georgia, right? They have some of the most high-tech stuff when it comes to analytical things for pitchers and hitters that you go, man, like what could this have done for my career if you would have gotten on these things and seen what these force plates and all the kind of stuff that the kids are getting to do. And, watching Coach Johnson build their engine, and all of a sudden now they're 5 miles an hour faster, and you're going, well, dang, that would have been really fun. What would that have done? That could have helped out the fastball, but, to see the things that these schools have is really cool. And so as a broadcaster, you get to kind of like test some of the things out, and watch the coach. That's Coach Johnson put me on, the force plates, and he's like, well, yeah, if you did this, we would have told you this. And I'm like, well, man, like it's just the analytical things can play a certain part of the game that a lot of fans and old school baseball players and baseball, enthusiasts don't like. But man, it can do so many good things too that allow each player to basically reach their potential maybe a little bit more than they ever could.
So you got it? Yep.
Yeah. We hear all the time about how the college game is light years ahead of where it was back when you played, but let's just call it 20 years ago. I'm kind of curious for your take now that, you've got an up close look at the game now, how the game is ahead of where it was when you played, and then maybe the ways in which you look at it and say, actually, you know what, like we kind of had it right back then. I'm curious for your thoughts there.
Well, I think when you look at like how far the game's ahead, and that can go all the way to 8 years old, 9 years old, even 6, that those kids nowadays, the 6-year-olds nowadays are farther advanced than what we were at 6 years old, playing T-ball in a field with no fence, right? These kids are now on turf fields, doing everything they can. They have all the gear, and that they have the training facilities, which we didn't have, right? Growing up, I think I didn't lift weights until I was a freshman in high school, and then it wasn't like it was like, hey, we're going to lift. Hey, you can go lift, right? So nowadays, there's training programs, there's speed coaches, there's pitching coaches that you can go to. Now, some people take it over the top, and you can do that. But like the resources that kids these days have that we didn't have unless you had somebody that was close to you, right? Like, I mean, Ron Guidry is from my hometown, and my dad knows him pretty well. Like, if Mr. Ron said it, by gosh, you did it, right? You weren't throwing a curveball until Mr. Ron said it was okay to throw a curveball. All right, cool. It worked for Mr. Ron. It's going to work for you. Okay, well, like nowadays, like I think kids are advancing at higher levels, so like can't really do that, right? I mean, hey, I didn't throw a curveball until I was, almost a sophomore in high school. Well, like nowadays, these kids are throwing it at 8. Well, like maybe that's too young, but with these college coaches, and that's where also too I like where the recruiting calendar has backed up a little bit when we had that little stretch where these kids were committed in 8th and 9th grade. Like they're having to be farther advanced now. With them, the recruiting being pushed back a little bit, they can kind of take their time and let their bodies develop on that. But like when it comes to like the game's the game. It's the same, right? Obviously we didn't have shifts, so a big left-hander smashes one to right field, right? He's got a base hit. Now it's an out. Would have been really cool as a pitcher. Yeah, some of the, facing guys, like Gabe Gross, and, the big lefties in the league that you're going, well, hey, if he hits a ground ball to right field, it's not a hit anymore. He might get thrown out at first. Right. Like that's kind of changed, but still, like we adapt to that. But I think overall, I think the players come into college a little bit more prepared, and especially if you get a high school coach that really dives in. I mean, and that's where for me, I was that. My high school coach, our practice schedule was identical to LSU's. Skip Bertman at the time. Well, at Alabama was Jim Wells, right? Basically skip A, right? Coach Bianco, 1A, 1B with them. Well, like when I got to school, whether there's a practice schedule, and it's the exact same thing. Well, so I'm one step ahead where you have these other guys like, what's going on? What are we doing? Like, what does that mean? I'd already had that. Like you hear coaches, Coach Bertman, and then when they talked about like there's the purple book, right? The pitching meetings where you had your book and he talked about the rule of 63, all these analytical things now that, don't come into play. Well, like we did that. We had the red book at Alabama. Well, I had those things in high school. And so I was a little bit prepared, but I think physically that to me is where college is different from now to when I was in school. But other than that, man, like the coaches were hard-nosed. They're still hard-nosed now, right? Players wanted to win as much as everything. Obviously, the transfer portal comes into play. We knew pretty much you were staying or you were sitting out, right? No one really wanted to give up a year to sit out. So you had your team of guys. Like, I mean, freshman year, we go to Omaha in 1999. Well, we knew we had those guys were going to kind of stay, right? Especially our freshman class. And we kind of built all that way up and had a really good nucleus for those 4 years. But, to me, again, they're just a little bit more physically prepared than ever.
Yeah. You mentioned the portal and how that's changed the sport. How difficult is it, not just for that player who's coming in, potentially playing four places in 4 years, but just that you have a whole new team. You don't have that nucleus in some cases to come in, and you're just shaking that Etch-a-Sketch, and it's a whole new roster composition every year. What challenges does that present, or is it overblown? I know some of us, aren't real crazy about having to learn a whole new roster every year, but is that a thing? Should we be concerned about the challenges that it presents?
So I think in baseball, it's probably a little overblown because you got to think of how the kids grow up, right? Mm-hmm. Different, if it's rec ball, different team every year, right? Whether the draft comes or whatever, summer ball. So like you might go rec ball to summer ball and travel ball with like new teammates here, summer ball in college or high school. So like it's always changing as opposed to like, let's say football, right? Right. You got to know what that guy on the right is doing. You got to know what that guy on the left is doing. Well, we've been on the same Pee Wee football team growing up. Like to me, that's a little different, right? There's no summer football where they're going play on different teams. Maybe there's some 7-and-7 stuff, but like they're still a team, a sense. But like baseball, I mean, you have guys coming in and out, especially nowadays. The travel ball where they're flying guys in to pitch and then they're out, and so like, hey, what's that guy's name? You're at shortstop. and you're like, hey, come on, number 13. I don't know your
Yeah.
name. Like, let's go strikes, right? That's kind of where we're at these days. And you see, if you're around the higher level travel ball, that's what you're seeing. So when they get on campus and it's a new guy, fresh faces, I don't think that affects them, because in a sense where baseball, right? We all want to win when we're out there. Everybody's putting in that effort, that grind. So, Mark and Joe are my teammates now. Look, hey, I'm accepting you as my teammates. Look, you're going to fit in with us until you basically fit yourself out, right? I mean, if you want to be the oddball, then that's up to you. But if you want to buy into the team, and almost everybody's going to accept that. And to me, you start to hear some stories of the Indianas in football this year, right?
Yeah.
A lot of guys transfer, like they said, the whole secondary is transfers. Or like, so they kind of took it upon themselves, hey, like we're the misfits that didn't belong, and now they kind of bonded. So you can kind of take it that way too, where guys are coming in like, hey, look, we took culture from that school, you took culture from this school, let's blend it. And so I think it's more overblown in the media and our side of things, like you said, because we want to see the same players on the same team and get accustomed to those guys, right? You see the Chris Burks of the world where you're going, okay, like I expect that guy, he's hitting, 1 or 2 hole at Tennessee and he's playing second base, shortstop, and you're like, look, he's there. Well, nowadays that doesn't happen. Well, I mean, other than that, I think the coaches deal with it very well, and the players do as well too.
Last thing for you, then we'll get you out of here, and I think it's probably the most important question. And I wanted to ask you about you being an SEC baseball dad now. Your son LJ is at Auburn playing for Butch Thompson in that group there. Certainly a good place to be a young pitcher with their track record of development. What has that experience been like for you as an SEC baseball dad, and what are you looking forward to in that experience?
Yeah, man, it's been really cool. And that's kind of the coolest part right now, to be the SEC dad on the side of things and just get to sit back, relax. I mean, I was pretty in tune into the high school side of things, talking with his coaches. Hey, pitch counts here, pitch counts there. Even talking to him like, hey, why are we throwing pitch that? What would you do differently? But now it's, you got to think of the staff they have, right? With like you just mentioned, Coach Butch, right? SEC pitching coach, one of the best ones ever. That's why he got his head coaching job. But then you got Everett Tiford, right? SEC pitching coach, big league experience. But you also got Scott Foxhall too, pitching coach at national title for Mississippi State. So like those 3 guys. So now I'm pitching coach number 4, right? So I get to sit back. Those guys have their hands on him, and now it's just like random question here. Hey, what would you do differently on this? And so like I get to sit back and truly just kind of hands off. Those guys have him. He's in phenomenal hands down at Auburn. I mean, again, you're right. They have a track record of producing, really good, high-quality pitchers. You can talk about Casey Mize, Tanner Burns, those types of guys, and you see what Coach Thompson's track record is. And so excited for him and just the team, right? I mean, last year, Super Regional, they felt they left a little on the table. I actually called that Super Regional, and I feel they did it too, but it was one of those where you ran into a buzzsaw. Coastal Carolina, their pitching staff was so good. So, they got a good nucleus of guys coming back. Rimbert, Freilich, those guys, some arms on the mound that you have some excitement. They brought in some transfers. So it's one of those things where you go, man, it's fun not only to watch your son play, but to watch him play at that level and get a chance to go, man, this is really fun baseball to watch, right? We go watch some inter squads and you're seeing that new freshman that no one knows his name yet, that you're like, all right, just wait for that guy. Maybe it's not this year, but next year, right? Or, you see that swing and you're like, okay, this is special. That's why these guys love him, right? And y'all write up on these guys now I get to go watch them all the time. And it's like, that's pretty cool. But no, it's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. That's going to be the beauty of not necessarily not calling many games early, is you get to see a lot of those preseason games. And, they got some big ones that go to Arlington in the second weekend. So looking forward to all those.
Are you going to be one of the superstitious dads that does the same thing when he goes out to the mound, or have a certain outfit you want to wear each time? Or
no, that's something I didn't follow a lot of superstitions playing. I mean, I would wear the same type of clothes because that's just routine, right? But when they wash your clothes and you put it right back in the same spot, you're going to wear the same thing, right? Yeah. But no, I mean, that's one thing that my wife and I, she, especially if you get the chance to watch my wife when he's on the mound, I mean, we talk about like stress, like no other, like none. I mean,
intense, huh?
Why? Like, my son's not moving if he has a bad outing. Other moms would be like, hey, how do you handle this so well? And, if he's not doing well or if he's doing it, she's like, when your husband's pitching for his life and he has a bad outing and we move 8 hours away, like, that's different stress. So, like, now as a parent, like, it's just, we've done our job. We prepared him. We had him training like we had to do. We've done this thing. And now it's just kind of sit back and, hey, it's in your hands, right? He has success. It's all him. He's earned it. If he doesn't have success, it's all him. It's, nothing that I could do
That's baseball.
to change that. Now, there's some times where, second and third, and I'm like, I get a little antsy, like, I want to go out there. You want to be out there, helping him through that situation. But that's the beauty of it, too, is you see the maturation of not only a pitcher, but your son in that situation going, all right, hey, what I would do, take a deep breath, step off the mound, and then you watch him do that. You're like, well, hey, some things have landed that I've tried to teach, and go, all right, they've landed there, and you watch him, and then he gets out of it, and you see the reaction, or he doesn't get out of it, and you go, okay, like, hey, this is where you can learn. So it's been really cool to be on this side of it.
We're certainly looking forward to watching him out there. Mark, did you have something else there?
No, I was just gonna say that's fun stuff, man.
It's obviously not an experience that Mark and I are going to have, but certainly looking forward to on your behalf, Lance, rooting for LJ out there and hoping the best for him and the team this spring, and also looking forward to hearing you on more calls with ESPN. I would highly recommend our listeners do so as well. Seek out his games; does a fantastic job, color analyst with ESPN. Lance, I appreciate you taking a little time and joining us today.
No, I appreciate it, and I will say, doing what I do, the analyst side of things, I feel sorry for him sometimes, right? Because then we start analyzing you're analyzing your son, and I'm like, buddy, I'm sorry, but this is what I do for a living. So now you're at the point where you got to wear it too. But no, it's been great. And again, guys, thanks for having me. You guys do a phenomenal job just with your coverage. And again, when you talk about where the game has gone, like, it's props to y'all. I mean, D1 Baseball, just as a website, but also like the individual coverage that you guys do, right? There wasn't like that. You had your Baseball America. That was it. You had to wait for the big magazine to come out, right? And you had a couple in the clubhouse. But other than that, now, like, I mean, just with the access that you guys give, with the subscriptions and the extra stuff, man, like, it's unbelievable. And so I think you guys get a big round of applause on where you've taken the game of college baseball, because without y'all doing all that stuff, most fans wouldn't know that. I mean, heck, we go to y'all's website for studying, for everything. Like, hey, if I'm looking up on a season preview, right, I need to know more about the Kentucky Wildcats. Well, I'm going to go to D1 Baseball's, fall preview. What happened in the fall, right? New name. So, again, props to y'all and everything that y'all do. Y'all keep it up too.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Really appreciate the kind words there. The check is in the mail, Lance. Don't worry about that. We got you there. That is going to do it for this edition of Highway to Hoover, a production of SEC Extra over at d1baseball.com. I want to thank one more time Lance Cormier for joining us on this episode. Thank Mark Etheridge, as always, for joining me, and we want to thank you, the listeners, for listening.